Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook, American Comics. Opening sign in Accelerator 31. Chapter 31 The Professor X. Professor X is in a coma. What the hell is going on? Levi's frowned. Chin on the side said with some guilt. It's Mystique, she has become like me, and moved her hands and feet in the brainwave booster. Professor X fell into a coma while using the brainwave booster to find the little naughty. So it is. What Chin said was pretty much what he knew. Take me to see Professor X. This time, everyone turned their attention to him. Do you have a way to cure the professor, Weiss? Chin asked excitedly. Chin is the most guilty of Professor X's appearance now. After all, Mystique changed the brainwave intensifier by changing into her appearance. Storm and Cyclops also had some expectations in their hearts. I can't say it's absolutely possible, but you can try. Levi's folded his arms and looked confident. He didn't say anything. After all, he didn't know Professor X's current situation. However, both his vector manipulation and telepathy can manipulate mental power, so it should be no problem to heal Professor X. Okay, come with me. Cyclops decided to take his word for it. Today's X-Men is like a mess without Professor X. It is impossible to rescue the little naughty, and he can only gamble. In the ward, Professor X lay peacefully on the hospital bed. X-Men's spiritual pillar just fell, which was a big blow to X-Men. Levi's came to Professor X without saying a word, put his hand on the professor's bald head and felt it carefully. Cyclops and Storm behind him were a little puzzled, not knowing what method he would use to heal Professor X. This time after Levi's left the academy. First used multiple abilities to rescue Polaris, then brought back the 4th-level mutant, and finally broke the Hellfire Club's conspiracy. This series of things, if any of them are replaced, they may not be able to do it. That's why Cyclops, Jin, and Storm believed him so. Only Logan, who usually doesn't care about these things, doesn't know anything about Levi's. He thinks that Levi's is the little kid who didn't have the awakening ability. I understand. At this moment, Levi's, who closed his eyes and felt it carefully, spoke up. I can perceive that the professor's mental power is very powerful, but this mental power is very chaotic now. Several powerful mental powers are scattered in his mind, so it is no wonder that the professor is in a coma. Cyclops and Storm were a little excited when they heard the words. Is there a way to cure it? Definitely, it shouldn't be difficult. Professor X's mental power is very powerful. After using the brainwave intensifier, his mental power can directly cover the entire Earth. It is indeed the most powerful spiritual mutant before. Why do you say it was before? Because after Levi's became a 4th-level mutant, the title of the strongest spiritual mutant should be given to him. With the blessings of the 2 super abilities of telepathy and super brain, now his mental power is not unexpectedly above Professor X's. Definitely, a grade 5 mutant doesn't count. In fact, the real mutant super ability of Chin is also telepathy, but it is only the level of the 3rd-level mutant. It was the Phoenix Force who chose her that made her extraordinarily powerful. Weiss, please, make sure to heal the professor. Chin said a little excitedly. I'm doing. After speaking, Levi stopped talking but concentrated. In order for Professor X to wake up, he had to calm the chaotic mental energy in his mind. When everyone saw this, they all fell silent. It seems very simple to straighten out the mental power in Professor X's mind. But it is not easy to do. Even Accelerator is at full capacity when doing this kind of thing to Sister Misaka, let alone him. Thanks to his super ability of telepathy, otherwise, there is really no way to rely on vector operations. In cases where both telepathy and vector operations are used. An hour has passed. Levi's finally breathed a sigh of relief, then slumped into the chair beside him. It was the first time that he performed delicate operations on mental power, and it really made him a little tired. Professor, Cyclops and Hechin on the side saw that Levi's had finished his treatment, and immediately came to Professor X and shouted. Weiss, are you all right? Polaris and Clarice and Shadowcat gathered around him with concern. It's okay, just a little tired. Levi's smiled and shook his head. Polaris saw him sweating profusely and took the initiative to wipe the sweat for him. Her action made Clarice a little annoyed. Why didn't she think of it? Weiss, why hasn't the professor woke up yet? Seeing that Professor X hadn't woken up yet, Cyclops asked anxiously. Levi's rolled his eyes. How can it be so fast? Although I have sorted out the chaotic mental power in the professor's mind, it is not a matter of time and a half to wake him up. Cyclops was a little embarrassed to hear that. Sorry, I'm in a hurry. Levi's didn't bother with him either. He understood the mood of Cyclops at the moment. American Comics. Opening sign in Accelerator 32. Chapter 32 The Trust of Professor X. Another half hour passed. Professor X's eyelids moved. This action immediately attracted everyone's attention. Finally, under everyone's attention, Professor X slowly opened his eyes. Professor, you're finally awake. Chin grabbed Professor X's hand, and the red tears in her eyes couldn't help flowing. Guys, I'm much better. Professor X looked at everyone with a look of relief. Especially when he saw Levi's, his eyes were full of admiration. Weiss, good boy, you did a great job. Although Professor X passed out, most of his mental power went berserk and uncontrolled, but a small part of the mental power that he could control was still able to observe some situations outside. With this small part of his mental power, he may be able to slowly regain control of all mental power, but it will take too long. The help of Levi's undoubtedly allowed him to regain control of his mental power faster. At the same time, it also made Professor X feel that Levi's is not weaker than himself. This made him sigh in his heart, worthy of being the 5th-level mutant he identified. There are many kinds of abilities, and each ability is very powerful. The most important thing is that Levi's just had awakening ability a month ago, but now he has surpassed him. This growth rate is really exaggerated. And what Professor X sees in Levi's is not only great strength, but also courage and resourceful wisdom in the face of danger. He watched everything Levi's did after leaving the academy. This kid is a natural leader. Thinking of this, Professor X couldn't help but sigh. Maybe he should retire, and it might be a good thing to entrust the future to the children. I'm just doing what I can do, Levi's said with a smile. Hearing his words, Professor X's eyes became more kind. This kid is really nice, not arrogant or impetuous. Professor, what should we do now? Cyclops asked anxiously. Professor X looked at Cyclops and couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. Cyclops, as the captain of the X-Men, performed very well in every way. But he was very indecisive, and after he fell into a coma, Cyclops acted very impatient and indecisive. As a captain, it shouldn't be. Thinking of this, Professor X didn't criticize him either. Take me to the brain-wave strengthening room. Professor X struggled to get up, and Chin immediately supported him. Levi's shook his head and said, Professor, your mental power has just calmed down, and you can no longer use your mental power for a short time. Professor X frowned. He also understood the truth. If he forcibly used the brainwave intensifier, it would probably damage his mental power again. Let me do it, Levi's suggested. No, using a brainwave intensifier is very dangerous. Storm shook his head and refused. Yeah, Weiss has no experience in using a brainwave booster, and it would be very dangerous to use it suddenly. Jean on the side also disagreed with him taking the risk. In the face of everyone's opposition, Professor X shook his head. No, let Weiss go. His mental power is no longer under mine, and it's okay to use a brainwave intensifier. What? Everyone was a little surprised to hear Professor X's words. Levi's mental power has surpassed Professor X, what a joke. Weiss, you should have telepathy too. Professor X looked at him and said. Yes, I do own telepathy. Levi's shrugged and didn't hide. As his strength gradually becomes stronger, there are very few people in this world who can threaten him, and it doesn't matter if he exposes a few super abilities. Cyclops and Storm and Jin were shocked to see him admit it. As far as they know, Levi's should have the ability to move in space, freeze, and reflect. But I didn't expect that he actually has telepathy ability, and his strength is not weaker than Professor X. This really surprised a few people. After all, a month ago, Levi's was just an ordinary person. Weiss, how many super abilities do you have? Storm asked suspiciously. Okay, you guys should hurry up and go to the brainwave strengthening room. Professor X interrupted Storm's words, and since Levi's chose to hide, they didn't need to look into it. Storm had no choice but to give up. Then Professor, take a good rest, and we will leave the matter of saving the little naughty back to us. Levi's smiled and follower Storm left the room. Cyclops and Jin stayed behind to take care of Professor X. Looking at the few people who left, Professor X suddenly sighed, this kid is really good, maybe he can take my place. Hearing this, Cyclops and Chin were a little surprised. They didn't expect Professor X to rate Levi's so highly. American Comics. Opening sign in Accelerator 33. Chapter 33 Brainwave in 10 Sci-Fi, looking for Little Naughty. The other side. Levi's and the others came to a room full of technology. Just wait here, Storm said to Logan and Polaris behind them. After that, Storm took Levi's into the brainwave strengthening room alone. Here is a cylindrical building like a deep well. In the middle of the building, there are some instruments. That's the brainwave intensifier. Levi's looked at the device in front of him. Yes, I'll teach you how to use it. Storm nodded and started teaching him how to use the brainwave intensifier. It doesn't take much time to have the super ability of Super Brain, and it is quite possible to have the absolute memory ability. His brain is like a supercomputer, and he will never forget anything as long as he has seen or heard it. After making sure he had learned how to use the brainwave booster, Storm backed out. Then Levi's directly activated the brainwave intensifier. In the next instant, his spiritual power spread all over the world. The huge flow of information made him a little uncomfortable. Fortunately, his brain, like a supercomputer, can automatically block out useless information. In the world of spiritual power, all human beings in the world are gray and white, while the mutant with super ability is red. He just needs to find the little naughty among these mutants. Magneto's helmet can shield mental power, but not a little naughty. Under his super brain operation, he soon found the position of the little naughty. Turning off the brainwave intensifier, Levi's walked out. How is it? Did it go well? Storm couldn't help frowning when he saw him come out so quickly. You must know that if Professor X uses the brainwave strengthening device, it will take much more time than him. Levi's shook his head flatly. What? Didn't find it? Storm and Logan were disappointed to see him shaking their heads. No, what I want to say is that it's too simple, and it's easy to find the position of the little naughty. Levi's finally couldn't help laughing when he saw their disappointment. Found it. Storm and Logan looked at each other, then a little surprised. Really found? Where? In Liberty Island. Magneto brought Little Naughty to Liberty Island. Levi's directly stated the location of Little Naughty without any nonsense. Great, I have to tell the professor the news quickly. Storm doesn't suspect him, then turns away. Seeing this, Levi's couldn't help shrugging his shoulders, then said to Polaris and Clarice, let's go to the professor's side too. The group returned to Professor X's ward. Professor, Weiss has found the place for the little naughty. Storm happily told the news to several people in the room. Did you find it? Professor X nodded in relief. That's right, Magneto has brought the little rascal to Liberty Island, Storm added. So what do we do next? Hearing this news, Cyclops instinctively looked at Professor X, waiting for him to make up his mind. However, Professor X shook his head. Let Weiss handle this matter. I believe he will be able to solve it. What? To Wes? Cyclops and Storm were stunned when they heard Professor X's words. Huh, are you calling me? At this time, Levi's and Polaris also returned to the ward. Professor, no, he's just a kid. Cyclops said to Professor X anxiously. Levi's was a little confused by this. Don't say it, I believe Weiss will be able to handle this matter. After Professor X finished speaking, he said to Levi's, Weiss, how about I plan to leave the rescue of the little naughty to you? Pass it to me. Levi's is confused, isn't there still the X-Men Captain Cyclops? Why leave it to him to make arrangements? What are you kidding? However, Professor X nodded seriously, yes, I have seen everything after you left school, and I think you will be able to do it well. Ah, since Professor X said so, well, I promise. It's really impossible for ordinary people to grab people in the hands of Magneto, but it is still very simple for Levi's today, so he simply agreed. Cyclops and Logan only felt that Professor X's decision was a bit of a joke, but Professor X was very serious. Okay, you all go out, this matter will be handled by Wes, and you all have to cooperate with him. After speaking, Professor X closed his eyes and rested. He was indeed a little tired after recovering his energy. Everyone looked at each other. Cough, since the professor said so, then let's go out and discuss the battle plan first. Levi's coughed dryly. Come with me, let's go to the combat command room. Storm still believes in his ability very much. Although Cyclops and Logan did not believe him, they followed. American Comics. Opening sign in Accelerator 34. Chapter 34 Rescue the Little Naughty Plan. The group came to the combat meeting room. Although you may not believe in my strength, it doesn't matter, because I will prove it with facts. Levi said and glanced across the crowd, finally pausing on Cyclops and Logan. It is self-evident who is saying this. Cyclops and Logan didn't speak with stinky faces. Next, let's sort out the current information first, and then make arrangements. Perhaps as Professor X said, Levi's was born with the ability to lead, and soon he entered the state. First, Magneto invented a special machine that, through irradiation with this machine, allows ordinary people to activate the X gene to become mutants. So in retaliation for MP Kelly, who proposed the mutant registration bill, Magneto intends to use this machine on Liberty Island. Speaking of which, I have to mention that Senator Kelly is the first guy in the original book who was irradiated by Magneto's machine and activated the X gene to become a mutant. It is precisely because X became a mutant that he was able to get out of Magneto's cage. But the good times didn't last long, and the machine was fatally flawed. Although it can help ordinary people with awakening X gene, ordinary people will cause gene collapse in a short period of time because of forcible awakening X gene. And Magneto just didn't know about this. He thought that the machine he created was successful, so he was anxious to start action. And the purpose of using machines on Liberty Island is self-evident. Because across from Liberty Island is Manhattan Island, where a meeting of leaders of various countries is being held. As long as the leaders of all countries are turned into mutants, then countries will definitely cancel the bill against mutants. Magneto's idea is very good. But the fault was that his machine wasn't complete, and that there were huge amounts of flaws. Otherwise, this approach may be a good way to solve the conflict between mutant and ordinary people once and for all. Ordinary people are afraid of mutant, but they are not envious of mutant's super ability. In just a few words, Levi spoke out about Magneto's purpose and flawed plans, much to the surprise of Cyclops and Storm, among others. Because even they didn't think so much. So what do we do next? Cyclops asked unconsciously. Definitely to get the little naughty back before the Magneto plan, and the machines made by Magneto must also be disposed of. If Magneto got too hot to use the machine himself, that would be bad. If such a thing were to happen, not only Magneto himself would die, but all the ordinary humans in New York would probably be killed. That would be the biggest murder in human history, and the common man and the mutant would be immortal. Definitely, there are many ways to deal with this machine. It is not necessary to destroy this semi-finished machine. Okay, do you have any objections? If not, we'll set off. I have one more thing. Cyclops stood up and said. Go ahead. Levi's waited for his question with his arms crossed. How do we deal with Magneto? I don't think he's going to give us the little naughty so easily. The problem of Cyclops is also the problem of Storm and Chin. Magneto's strength has been deeply rooted in the hearts of the people. Can they complete the task successfully? As reckless as the original. Real Magneto doesn't follow the script. Faced with this question, Levi shrugged and said with a smile, it can be said that this question is the last thing you need to worry about. His confident look made everyone stunned. Only then did they remember that Levi's was no longer the ordinary person he was a month ago. Now his telepathy is no longer under Professor X, not to mention his ability was not telepathy in the beginning. If all his abilities have the level of Professor X, then no one will be his opponent. Thinking of this, Storm, Cyclops, and the others looked at each other with surprise. Alright, let's go. After a while, everyone changed into the black combat uniforms that belonged to X-Men. Levi's tried it and felt good. Weiss, what about us? Then Polaris and Clarice came over. You guys. Levi's shrugged helplessly, apparently not preparing their clothes here. Clarice, you and Katie will wait for news at the academy. Just go with Lorna and me. He thought about it for a while and decided not to take Clarice and Shadowcat, the two of them hadn't fought much at all. It will be very troublesome when it comes to danger. Clarice and Shadowcat looked sad when they heard his words, but they didn't object, and they knew they might have caused trouble in the past. Don't worry, the mission will go smoothly if I'm here, you can just wait for the good news at the academy. Levi's comforted with a smile. Wes, we're getting ready to go. Storm shouted not far away. Okay, here we come. Levi's agreed, then walked towards the underground parking lot with Lorna. American Comics. Opening sign in Accelerator 35. Chapter 35 Sign into Storm, Weather Manipulation. In the underground of the school playground, there is a black fighter plane full of futuristic technology. Hey, so cool. Although Levi's knew that there was a dedicated X-Men fighter in the ground, he had never seen it, and it was really cool to see it now. This is the X-Men's exclusive car, it has. Let's get on the plane. Storm interrupts Cyclops pretending. Then they all got on the plane together. The school playground was suddenly opened, followed by the roar of the plane. The students who were resting in the dormitory were all attracted by this movement. When they saw the black fighter jets, the students were not too surprised. X-Men used fighter jets a lot of times, and they had seen such scenes many times. Then, in the eyes of the students, the black fighter plane disappeared in an instant. Definitely, this is not the disappearance of the fighter, but the optical stealth. In the dark, you want to find a fighter that has entered optical stealth, unless you hear the roar of the fighter at a very close distance. Otherwise, the existence of fighter jets cannot be found at all by ordinary means. The speed of the fighter planes was very fast, and after half an hour, they had already approached the New York Liberty Island. After this bridge, we're going to Liberty Island. Storm will take cover, Cyclops said without looking back while piloting the plane. This is Liberty Island. The military on the island is fully equipped. If you don't take cover, it is still easy to be discovered. Definitely, Levi's thinks it's easier to be detected by covering up. And he found that when they went out to perform tasks, everyone would call each other by their titles. But he doesn't seem to have a title. Levi's touched his chin, maybe he should have allowed title too. Clear, Storm agreed, then rolled his eyes. At this time, a white cloud suddenly appeared in front of the fighter. Manipulating the weather. Levi's looked at Storm, who rolled his eyes with interest. As far as he knows, Storm can control all kinds of weather at will in a large area. It can also change the temperature, humidity, moisture, atmospheric pressure and molecules in the air in the surrounding environment. There are even atmospheric phenomena that she can control electromagnetic waves. Through these she is able to form elements in nature to attack. These elements are mainly wind, cloud, rain, snow, hail, fog and thunder. This ability is quite comprehensive. Thinking of this, he moved in his heart and then signed Storm. Open black lens bracket ding. Did the host check into mutant Storm? Close black lens bracket. Sign in. Open black lens bracket ding. The sign in is successful. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the super ability, Weather Manipulation, with 100 experience points. Close black lens bracket. Levi's is in a good mood after successfully signing in the Weather Manipulation ability. Storm is a level 3 mutant who in the comics once manipulated hailstones and nearly wiped out all of Africa. Definitely, manga is manga, and it's definitely not that powerful in movies. If Storm now controls the hail, at most it will cover the entire Liberty Island. But it's different when used by Levi's. The 4th level mutant can make the hail cover a larger area. Maybe it can really cover the whole of Africa. Soon the fighter plane passed through the clouds, and the entire Liberty Island appeared in front of everyone. At the same time, beneath the statue of Liberty Island, Magneto had noticed the mist rising over the river in the distance. Let other people make up their minds, the people who get in the way of our plan have come. Hearing Magneto's words, Sabretooth who was behind him stupidly turned around and left, as if he wanted to meet the enemy. However, before he could go far, he was stopped by Magneto. You stay, Sabretooth. I will become weak when I pass the energy to that little girl. You are responsible for protecting me. Sabretooth, who was originally aggressive and fierce, could only stand there obediently when he heard this. At this moment, the blonde woman on the side said, Eric, I didn't feel Charles in the plane, he should not come. Hearing this, Magneto said indifferently, it seems that Raven successfully delivered the things I prepared for Charles. You killed him? The blonde woman asked in surprise. No, that thing will only keep Charles quiet for a while at most. After a pause, Magneto continued with a somewhat complicated expression. Although Charles and I have different views and practices, we are both working hard for mutants' future. If there is anyone in this world who wants him to die the most, it is definitely me. The blonde woman heard this and shrugged boredly. I'm not interested in knowing about your business. I'm here to deal with Charles for you. Now that he's not here, what should I do? Magneto was silent for a while. Go deal with the kids that Charles taught me. Don't let them mess me up. By the way, those kids are mutants Hope too, so try not to hurt them. You are really good at calling people. The blonde woman was a little helpless, but she did not refuse. Please like and subscribe.